Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. I had hoped to avoid talking about this particular topic as it directly involves government policy, and by its very nature, government policy is a miasma of documentation that is far too much trouble to slog through than it's usually worth. More often than not, a single government document that weighs in on the short side is still the average length of the unabridged works of William Shakespeare. However, the implications are widespread enough and directly impacts all of us enough that I felt it warranted at least a brief discussion on what's been going on and what the implications are. So a short while ago, the head of the FCC, Ajit Pai, announced that he was going to be pushing forward a reclassification of Title II so that broadband internet providers would no longer qualify. Under this reclassification and removal of the Title II regulation for broadband providers, net neutrality flies right out the window, and I know most of you have heard this talked to death, but for the sake of those that have not been kept up to date on the current political machinations by the former Verizon corporate attorney-turned-FCC head, I'll provide a brief overview of what net neutrality is designed to prevent and what it is that Ajit Pai is attempting to do away with and why. Net neutrality is, in a nutshell, a government mandate that all data is to be treated as equal. This means that this YouTube video or a Netflix stream is every bit as important as a Twitch stream, your work email, or even the latest updates for your operating system. Each are to be treated with the same prioritization and as such are not to be blocked or throttled in any way. The reclassification of Title II and the removal of broadband providers from it will remove this limitation and allow internet service providers large and small to prioritize data as they see fit. This will even allow ISPs to charge a premium fee for content providers like Netflix, YouTube, Steam, Twitch, or any other site in order to ensure faster speeds. That is the general perception at any rate, and it is a perception that is at least slightly flawed, but it is a highly understandable that many would make a slight error in comparison in regards to this. You see, there will not be any sudden magical creation of a fast internet lane that will allow those that pay the mob-style protection fees to ensure data delivery, as many seem to understand. More, there will be a slow lane that will be created by those ISPs in order to throttle those that choose to not pay for the premium service. Ajit Pai has made the assertion that this premise is of course ridiculous and the ISPs would have no interest in doing such a thing, which is, to my mind, only what one could expect from someone that spent any sort of time at all drinking the Verizon corporate Kool-Aid. Now, I'm reminded, at least in this sake of Ajit Pai's argument, of a similar argument that was made back when I was in high school. Back then, in the time of the dinosaurs, our then assistant vice principal decided to place a ban on wallet chains, claiming that they could be used as a weapon. Of course, no one in the school had ever even considered such a thing until the administration brought it to everyone's attention, and much the same case could be made of the argument in regards to net neutrality. Ajit Pai argues that there have never been an example of a service being blocked or throttled prior to net neutrality regulations and uses that as an example of why ISPs should no longer be subject to Title II. But the thing that he seems to be completely overlooking, some would argue intentionally so, is very much the idea that if they hadn't had the idea before, they sure as hell will now. The original classification of services listed under Title II occurred in 1996, and the origin of Title II itself was to govern and regulate non-discriminatory requirements in order to combat telecommunications monopolies and excesses by Ma Bell in 1934, a rather old statute that still somehow clings to relevance to this day. In 2015, after a fierce internet controversy, the FCC voted 3-2 to reclassify broadband internet access as a common carrier service under Title II, which gave the FCC the authority to enact and enforce net neutrality regulations in order to keep it the open platform that it is currently today. But there is still the question as to why. Why would Ajit Pai, a former Verizon attorney, desire the abolishment of FCC regulations over internet service providers? Hum de la hum. Well, laying aside any assumptions or innuendo, we do know that he has been tasked by the Trump administration with a, quote, light touch approach on government regulations in order to stimulate infrastructure and growth. Pai argues by inference that Title II is stifling growth for internet service infrastructure and so, given this light touch mentality, desires to simply abolish it entirely. And while I agree that there are some aspects of Title II that are dated and may be unrealistic in a modern economic environment, Pai's pave and nuke mentality when it comes to regulatory standards very much throws out the good with the bad, and all the while offering nothing up in its place. The simple fact of the matter is that while Title II might be outdated, net neutrality is still something that seems to be a universal desire among the American populace, and Pi seems to be acting in direct contrary to that. Of course, the FCC does accept notice and will listen to feedback, and I highly recommend all my viewers protest Ajit Pai's actions. They have created an exceptionally convoluted system for people to navigate in order to be able to do so, but as with everything, there is a very simple solution. John Oliver, a television comedian of some renown, has decided to create the site gofccyourself.com, which is a redirect to cut through all the bull on the site and take you right where you need to go. Once you go there, you simply click on the link labeled Express on the proceeding 17-108, which should be the only proceeding there, and then you merely fill out your information. So please do make sure to spread the word to anyone and everyone you know. Tell them to go to gofccyourself.com and help fight against the abolishment of net neutrality. The repeal in its current form does nothing to help consumers and does everything to aid corporate interests, and it is most certainly not something that I can agree with. But before you go, don't forget to play whack-a-mole with those like and share buttons, and if you're new to the channel, include the subscribe button as well. It does help out more than you could possibly imagine. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and thanks for watching.